This tutorial will cover how to make a note that when you go up to it and interact with it, it shows a widget, pauses the game, and then shows your mouse cursor. And then when I press escape again, it closes it. So for example, if I'm up here, pauses the game, shows the widget, closes. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to our Blueprints first person class, open up our graph, and then we're going to search for the escape key. And then we're going to get a branch. And then down in our variables, I'm going to create a new Boolean variable called inInteraction widget. Compile and save. This should have a default value of false. Then we're going to drag this, we're going to get it, and then we're going to plug that into the condition, and then we're going to plug pressed into the branch. Compile and save. That's all we need to do for here for now. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to create a separate folder called notes, just so we're a little bit more organized. And then in notes, we're going to go to blueprint interface, and we're going to create bpi_note. And then in here, in the function, we're going to call the function note, and that's all we need to do for this interface. Then we can go back to our BP first person character, go to class settings, implement in interfaces, and find that new interface that we just created, bpi_note. Compile and save. Then we need to go to our notes folder and create a new blueprint class, which will actually be the note that we're going to be interacting with, actor, and I'm going to name this bp_note. Then we're going to open it up, and in this tutorial, I won't be implementing an interaction system where we press E, so I'm going to just make it so that the note opens whenever the player enters a certain radius. So we're going to first get a sphere collision, and then I'm going to make the radius like 150, or maybe 100, a little bit less. And then we're going to get a cube to represent our note actor. You can always change this out to be a decal, which I might do at the end. Compile and save. And then same with this actor, our note actor, we need to do other class settings, implement in interfaces, and then search up for bpi_note. Compile and save. Then we need to go to our content drawer, back to our notes folder, and then we need to go down to the user interface tab, go to widget blueprint, and then call this wg_note, whatever you want to name it. This is where it'll pop up and we can read the actual note on the screen. Double click on this. In the library tab, search for a canvas panel. Drag that to the note hierarchy. Then we can get an image. Drag that to the canvas panel. And then with it selected, we can go to anchors, anchor it to the middle, position X 0, position Y 0, and then you notice how it's not exactly in the center. How we can make it exactly in the center is by using alignment. So we could set the alignment 1 to 0.5 and the alignment 2 to 0.5, and then we could set the X and Y values to something like maybe like 700 and 800, or maybe 650. Something that looks like a note that you'd read when you pick it up, just for an example. What you'd want to do if you're making this into a game is by switching out the image for something that looks like a piece of paper, but just for this tutorial, I'm going to just make it a blank white box. Then we can go to text, get the text block, not the rich text block, drag that out to our hierarchy. Change the color of it to black so it's easier to see on it. Then we can set the anchor 0, 0, 0.5, 0.5, and then say this is a note. Great. Now we have our note. That's it. Then we need to go to the graph of it, and then we can delete event preconstruct and event tick. We can keep event construct for a little bit later on, but then we can go to class settings, implemented interfaces, and go to our interface that we just created, bpi_note, compile and save. So now we're back in our note blueprint, and we want to make it so whenever we overlap with the sphere, it'll open up the note. So to do that, with the sphere selected, we can do on a component begin overlap, and then out of the first execution pin, we can do cast to bp_first person character. And then from the object, we can do other actor. And if you were to use a different interaction method by pressing E before, you'd want to have a get actor of class. But since we're using an overlap, all we have to do is just cast it, nothing else. Then from the as BP first person character, we can get our Boolean variable called interaction widget in interaction widget. And you might want to have context sensitive off to see it. And then we got to get set in interaction widget. And then we can set that to true. And then we can create widget. And then from there we can select our widget_note. And then from the return value, add to viewport. And then if we wanted to be able to show our mouse cursor, we can set show mouse cursor, just in case you want to be able to see your mouse while in the note. And then from target, we can get player controller. And then we have to set the game to paused. Set game paused to true. And then just to know that this is working, we can print out a string that says note opened up, just for debugging purposes. You can remove this if you want, it isn't necessary at all. I'm sorry, I made an error. Of target, we have to select context sensitive, then get player controller, this one instead of state machine controller. So it's slightly different, but this will cause the code to work. Compile and save, and it'll work. So now if we go and test this out, when we overlap with the sphere, it pauses the game, and it shows our note. One thing I forgot, make sure that the show mouse cursor is true. Now we can go back to our BP_first person character, and from our branch that we have right here, out of true, we can get all widgets with interface, and then select the class as our interface, bpi_note. And then, found widgets, we can remove from parent. Oops, I spelled that wrong. Remove from parent. You might have to unset context sensitive. Then after, we can get our Boolean variable in interaction widget and set this to false. Then we can set show mouse cursor to false, and then out of the target, get player controller with context sensitive enabled, so that we get this one. And then we can set game paused to false. And what this is basically doing is every time I press escape, it's going to get all the widgets with the interface of bpi_note, aka the widget that we just created here. And then it's going to remove from the parent, and then it's going to set the Boolean variable interaction widget to false. So the cool thing about this is you can create as many notes as you want, and all you have to do is just go to the class settings of the widget, and then just add the note interface that we made, bpi_note. And it'll apply to all of those, and they'll remove them, which is amazing. It's a universal method to do this. But if we want to make it so that if we just press pause, like escape, it'll just pause the game too. Out of the false pin right here, we can get a flip-flop. And then whenever we press escape, but we're not in a widget, we can first set game paused to true. We can set show mouse cursor to true. And then from this pin, you can create like a pause menu widget. So I create a widget, and then this can be a pause menu. But since we didn't make that, we don't have to do that. And then all we have to do for the B is just copy and paste this, print it, and out of the B, set the game pause to false. And then out of target for show mouse cursor, we get player controller with context sensitive enabled. And then drag that for both of them. Pause, and that's it. So now if one last thing. With your escape key, you have to say execute when pause set to true. So that whenever the game is paused, if I still press escape, it'll work. Compile and save. And that's it. So now if I go up to the cube and I press escape, unpauses the game, hides the widget. So if I'm a player exploring and I go up to the note and I interact with it, I'm reading it and then I press escape, it closes the widget, and I can go on my game. And yeah, this is all. Thank you for watching this tutorial.